Is the new colonial bargain coming to an end, at least for the European Union or Europe overall? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Stream Dialogue. I'm your host, Dane. I do geopolitical analysis on this channel on Africa and the Caribbean. So, is the new colonial bargain coming to an end in the case of the EU or Europe? So, this new colonial bargain, as I like to call it, happened after the end of World War II. Europe was decimated. The big king on the block, the United States, realized that classic colonialism will not work. We have to switch to a new more subtle colonial model as the British normally practice, but even more subtle than that. European colonization influence was switched to neocolonization in Africa. And that influence was used by the new kid on the block, Uncle Sam, to control the former colonies or now neo-colonies of the European empires, whether it was France, UK, United Kingdom, or Britain, a Dutch, Portugal, and so forth. Many of them, try to hold on to their colonies like the Portuguese, but still they gave way to neocolonialism. In Asia, Japanese influence was used to control those former territories and to cement US imperialism throughout the continent, throughout the world. In South America, of course, that is considered to be the backyard of the empire. As we fast forward today, Europe, let's stick with the two major powers in Europe, whether it's economic powers in Europe. France, which is mostly is financial power in Europe, and Germany, which is a industrial power in Europe. Both of them have lost that power. France is heavily indebted, it's in economic problems, and also Germany. It is being the industrialized, and that has been accelerated in the past, let's say 4 to 5 years. But it has been happening before that. So these two major powers, economic powers, is what held the European Union together and what was able to project the power that Europe was able to wield in Africa and also throughout the world. And that power is being challenged in Africa. You see the rise of the new African revolution. You see it being beginning in the Sahel, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. But there's always rumbling in other countries. And France is desperate to hold on to that because this is where France's financial muscle comes from. And the current president of France knows that better than anybody else because he used to work in the banking system of France and he understands the importance of African financial resources flowing to Europe continuously to France. You know that over 50% of a lot of African bank reserves are deposited in French bank in the French treasury, and also through French companies and so forth. Financial resources can flow to Europe and France, but African natural resources are normally controlled by European companies. France have the first right of refusal in its neo-colonies to oversee where those materials go and the price and so forth of those raw materials, which will give France an edge over a lot of its European, let's say, partners, European countries like Germany. Germany would need those natural resources to flow to Germany to to feed its industry, whether it's bauxite and other stuff for cars and so forth. That things that Germany is known for, but that resources is not flowing as it would be. And ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about the rise of the new African revolution, of course, France and all of them, they did not count the African. They did not count the people of Africa trying to take their destiny in their own hand and to get fair compensation for their resources. I'll give you an example of the financial power and how France is a partner of imperialism. Whenever China wants to do deals with Africa, or China want to increase its cooperation in Africa, France is always involved. Remember a few years ago, France did a cooperation agreement or summit with France in Africa rather than with Africans. It was mostly through the French because the Chinese understand that French real tremendous influence in a lot of its colonies, whether it's in Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Chad, in Central Africa, Congo, Brazzaville, and so forth. So the Chinese understand, and the Chinese are very, the Chinese are looking out for their interests. They know that the best way for them to get the best deals is to go through France, even though China is a huge trading partner of these French colonies or neo colonies. It is through French financial institution that these trade happen, the transaction and so forth. But France will benefit financially through that, and also the resources, profits or sales from the resources go to the French bank. But I digress. That's another topic for another. Neo-colonial bargain, I believe, is being taken away from the European Union. Germany and France have lost its influence, so it cannot project power in Africa anymore as it once did. It is holding on to life. So you see, France is trying to cooperate with Nigeria to hold on to its colonies in West Africa, hoping that Nigeria will be that middleman to hold on to power in in West Africa. And we have our thoughts. We don't think that will work. What if Nigeria, wink wink. But Europe has problems when it comes to Africa and holding on to Africa. African population is growing. It's very young. It's very vibrant. It's looking. It's desires the development. Its elites have been delegitimized, whether it is political elite, economic elites has been delegitimized. With the rise of the new African revolution, we see unprecedented gains being made by a lot of these Sahel countries. Development Bank being launched, a development project, infrastructure projects, even though they're facing the difficulties of terrorism throughout the region and economic cause sabotage, this hybrid war that has been launched for them to fail in order to not to inspire other African countries to take this lead. But the political and economical lead has been delegitimized. They have lost popularity. A perfect example of that is the election in Senegal with Macky Sall and the duo of Jomai Faye and Osman Sonko. Macky Sall and his backers did everything to go for another term and to undermine this popular opposition, which is to tell you this is where the trend in the continent is going, and the growing consciousness of the population is putting a lot of pressure on the political and economical elites that cannot deliver on what the population desire. So this colonial bargain is being pulled out of Europe because it is being weakened economically, industrially, and so forth, which will continue Europe's decline. You see a lot of European leaders, countries, their territories are being threatened. That is between them and their partners, as they put it. But this is a sign of strife within the imperialist camp. But nonetheless, this is not a concern for the people of the global south. This is for them to sort it out because the people of the global south have suffered at the hands of these imperialist and colonial countries. And that decline will continue, which will make Europe a lot more vulnerable in Africa and throughout the world, of course. But this is what we call the colonial bargain. Just to reiterate, the colonial bargain was Europe, your influence and economic and cultural dominance of Africa, which went on for a few hundred years, will be using this new style of neocolonization to benefit the top of the pyramid, and we know who that country is. So Europe, the EU, believe that Africa belongs to them. They reign supreme in Africa. So you can see now, nobody really talks about the European Union anymore because they are new economical players in Africa, in the global south. And that neo-colonial bargain, as I say, is not just towards Europe, but to other countries. You know, you see this blatant a quest for classic colonization, more of a more of hard power being pushed everywhere here and there, and that is not the sense of what you would call a strength. But this is a fear of the global north, believing that the rise of a lot of global south countries is challenging their dominance and ability to continue to dominate the planet and the people and its resources. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining this channel.